Well, welcome to Talking Hawks. G'day, Chris. How you going?
Yeah, I'm great, mate. How are you?
That's the way. Very good, very good. Welcome tonight, fans. We've got special guests with us tonight at Talking Hawks. We're here to help with connecting Hawks fans from around the world. We enjoy some intelligent footy conversation, having a few laughs along the way, but we are honoured to have a 2008 Premiership player with us tonight. So, Chris, it's been one we've been anticipating.
Yes, we've got a little list together of who we want to get, and he was really high up that list, and we're really excited to have him on. So we've put the word out, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people join us for the conversation.
Yeah, we're good mates with Rick Ladson, who we had on recently, but Chance Bateman, amazing Aboriginal Indigenous role model at the Hawthorn Football Club. So again, he's joining us from Western Australia. Since you've moved back there, welcome aboard. Chance Bateman, how you going?
Woo-hoo.
Going really well, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's taken a little while. Amazing. You've been chasing me for a bit, but it's good to finally be on.
You've been busy on this Fred Hollows run, so you were fit and it was hard to chase you. So it's good we got you going. You slowed down recently. You've been doing some good fundraising. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I decided to sign up for the Fred Hollows Foundation, Fred's Big Run, and it's all about fundraising money for to help restore sight to some of the poorest communities in the world, because a lot of people in those communities are unnecessarily blind, and the procedure to actually help them see again isn't that extensive or expensive. So I was fundraising for that, and I ended up, I was seeing it on other people's socials, and I thought I might do that, but I didn't sign up at the start of August. I signed up on about the 13th or the 14th, and I decided I was going to run 100 Ks in August. So I had sort of 16, 17 days to get it done. And I was tracking along all right until about the 26th of August. I felt a little nick in my left calf while I was running, and I ended up making it back home. It was about a 12K run that day. And then 2 days later, I thought, if I made it home, the calf must be all right, just a bit of tightness. And I went out again, and same thing at about the 2.5, 3K mark. I felt another grab and really sort of tightened up and got sore. And I got another 9Ks out that day. But by the time I got back home, the leg was stuffed. So.
Where's Jack Russell when you need him?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I need all that medical staff that were able to get me through most years. But yeah, so just this morning, actually, I went into the Perth Footy Club's gym, and I jumped on the exercise bike and did the remaining 19 Ks to round out the 100 Ks on an exercise bike. So a little bit disappointing. I couldn't run past the finish line. We raised a couple of grand, which restored sight to about 87 people. So a good result.
Very good. Yeah. Is that still open for donations or all done?
I suppose so. I mean, I only sort of chucked it up on a WhatsApp group to the Perth playing group and the coaching group, and a lot of those people donated, and I've put it on my Instagram.
There you go.
So I don't know if there's any sort of close off, or as long as the link's there, people can still donate. But if anyone's listening wants to donate, we'd happily receive those donations.
There you go. Instagram, Chance Bateman, get on it. But mate, we've got the fans starting to pile in with a few different questions. Let us know where you're tuning in from and some of your best memories or questions for Changa. We are going to go on a little bit of a journey tonight. Chris, do you want to give a little bit of an intro to Chance and his career?
Yes, Chance played. I've lost how many games you've played. Sorry, mate. Can you tell us off the top of your head?
177, I think it was.
Yeah. Good number. That qualifies you for father-son, mate.
Yeah.
you were the first Indigenous player to 100 games. It's a huge achievement, and Premiership player. So what a career you had. You had career highs of 31 possessions during your career. I think you hit 30 a few times. You had a cracking year one year where you averaged nearly 22 disposals and I think about 5 tackles. You were killing it that year. So, yeah, absolute highlight of your career was 2008 Premiership. So we'll get to that later in the episode. But my first question for you is, you were taken in the 99 draft at pick 48. Did you have many clubs show a bit of interest? Because we don't get to hear about that very often.
Yeah. So my sort of journey to AFL level and getting drafted was probably happened all really quickly. So I wasn't involved in any sort of state 16s program or anything like that, where a lot of players come through. I played my junior footy in York, and then at the end of my 15th year, 16 and 17, I played for our local league side, so playing against men at a pretty young age. And I was part of the Perth Footy Club's development squads. And then it was, I think it was around at the end of 1998. I had a license because mum and dad didn't have a car. So I was always going to battle to drive the sort of 100 Ks from York down to Perth to get to training. So the year I got my license, I turned 17, left school to buy myself a car. And then I was making the trip from York down to Perth because I thought in 99 I'd just have a real crack at 18s football. So that's the Colts over here. And in 99, played the first 7 games of Colts footy, and then I ended up debuting in the Perth Footy Club's league side as a 17-year-old, which was a bit of a surprise, and played the remaining 11 games with the Perth Footy Club in the league side, and went back at the end of that league's year because they didn't make finals, and was in a finals campaign for the Colts, and we were lucky enough to win a flag that year. We had a lot of good players running around in our under-18s team. But I was selected to play in the state 18s that year, and that was the first time I'd been involved in a state program. And then we actually, Western Australia, we actually won the national championships that year. It was played up in Brisbane. And there was a whole heap of us that ended up getting drafted at the end of that year. But I got invited to draft camp, and initially I didn't go because I was really naive. I had no idea what draft camp was all about, and I missed the flight where all the West Australian boys went over. Yeah. And so then someone jumped on the phone. And they're like, "No, you've got to go." And it was myself and Leon Davis, actually. We both decided we weren't going to go, but then someone told us that it's better for us if we jump on the plane and get over there. Yep. So, we did. And I spoke to a few clubs over there. But there was only one club, and that was the Hawks, who met with me over here at the season's end. So John Turnbull came over with Peter Schwab, and I met them down at a hotel in Freo. And John Turnbull sort of said to me, "Look, if you're still around at pick 48, we're going to take you." So cool. They had the pick just Freo, I think, we were pick 49, and Johnny tells me that they were going to take me with pick 49, but I was really fortunate to get picked up with the Hawks.
So you were telling us pre-show, that's awesome to hear a bit of the background, and it's nice hearing where people come from, and 100 kilometres away, and what you need to do. But you mentioned that you grew up idolising West Coast, and
yes,
you had no idea about any of the Hawks players really, or any Aboriginal players at the Hawthorn Football Club. You just took that punt with the recruiting manager at the time, and JT looked after you.
Yeah. So I grew up a really a massive West Coast fan. Peter Matera was my favourite player. He was my idol. I actually remember being sort of heartbroken and close to tears in '91 when the Hawks knocked off West Coast. So that was a sad day when I was a West Coast supporter. I obviously changed my tune quite quickly when I went to the Hawks. But yeah, I had no idea about the Hawthorn Footy Club. Didn't know anything about the history. Had to look up where Glen Waverley was when I was over in the West, and I found out I was getting drafted. And I stayed with a host family, Pat and Rob Benham, who looked after a lot of boys, Croft and Dicko and Luke McCabe and all those blokes. They were a great host family out at Glen Waverley, and it wasn't until I sort of arrived at the club that I realised that the footy club had pretty much no history whatsoever of Aboriginal players coming through the club, and it wasn't until a conversation I had with JT or Johnny Turnbull that he sort of let me know that that was because of some, sort of, to put it bluntly, some racist sort of recruiting policies that had been around the club for some time. He said that when he took over the role as recruiting manager, someone pretty senior inside the footy club, he didn't say who it was or if they were even still at the footy club while I was there, but they told him when he got the job, they congratulated him for landing the role and said that he'd do just fine as long as he didn't draft anyone with skin darker than his own. That's the guy who was talking to JT. Yeah. And that was sort of mid to late 90s. And I was sort of really taken aback by that sort of that thing going on. So, in that day and age, in the late 90s, moving into the early 2000s, for that sort of stuff to still be taking place, I was a bit shocked by. But it made sense that the footy club hadn't had any sort of real representation from Aboriginal players. That sort of gave me the reason why, but it also gave me some drive and motivation to do whatever I could to change whatever sort of preconceived ideas that the people inside the footy club might have had around Indigenous or Aboriginal players, and show them what we can bring, not just as players but as people, and help educate those inside the club and the wider community about the benefits of having a diverse playing group, and sort of further educate them about Aboriginal people and some of the unique qualities that we have and the differences we have, and how we can all coexist as one.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing that you must have had a bit of a bond with JT if he's sharing that with you, and I love that you used it.
Yeah,
the motivation, and I think we're still learning as a society, and it's great to have people speaking out. And mate, thank you for playing your part. We might dig into it a little bit more because it's timely that we've had you on, at the end of Shaun Burgoyne's career. But mate, there's plenty coming in for the fans here, so let me just use a little bit.
No worries at all.
Lots of people here loving your work. You might know good mate of the show and old mate of yours, Rick Ladson. He take you to the trenches. The dreadlocks. Here we go. Glenn Nelson's. What was the inspiration behind the dreadlocks back in the day?
There was no sort of deeper meaning to it, really. I just I saw it's quite common to see other people walking around with them and whatever. So
you didn't inspire Clarko? It wasn't Bob Marley inspired that?
No. I just decided that one day I'd want to have I'd want some dreadlocks, and it probably took me 12 to 18 months to get my hair to a length that was was going to work. So I grew the hair out a little bit, and then once it was at the length required, it was over here actually. In one off season, I went to a lady down in Freo, an African lady, and she gave me some dreadlocks and kept them for a while. I didn't mind the look.
Mate, when you were on the field, I was inspired by. I just thought you had those hunting roles at times. I was like, you just reminded me of that dude in Predator. A
lot of that. I ended up being an easy target for people over the fence. You know, when you come off and you go for a bit of a walk before you go back to the bench and have a sit down. But the amount of times I've been told to have a wash and get that shit out of my hair was quite funny.
So if I could take you back to when you just got drafted. You come over 2000. You managed 3 games in your first season. You played the majority at Box Hill. 2001, you've played 4 games with the Hawks, but during that season, you had a family tragedy. You lost your sister in an accident. So the club's allowed you to return home, trying to support you. Can you run us through that and how that sort of impacted your career? Because we nearly lost you, didn't we? You nearly stayed home in Perth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so in 2001, it was quite a successful time for the footy club. Actually, we'd I think you might remember that the league side were going pretty well, and I think they missed out by a kick against the Bombers in a prelim. Was that right?
That sounds. Maybe. What year was that? Yeah, it could be right that year.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, so I think it was a few weeks out from our finals campaign. We were down at it might have been Anglesey or somewhere like that. I can't remember. It was a coastal town where we were sort of having a bit of a break away from the footy club, where we could all sort of get together and start preparing for this run into the finals. And I received a phone call from my sister to tell me that Candy had been sort of taken away from us, and she'd been in an accident and she'd passed, and it was an incredibly tough time. It was it was late at night. We might have already had dinner, or we were about to have some dinner, and I think it was Gary Buckenara had to sort of get me in a car and the drive back to Melbourne. Got home and just started making plans around how I could book a flight and get back to Perth. Really, really tough time for all the family, especially mum and dad. Mum, it took an enormous toll on. I came back, went back to York. I ended up spending probably 3 or 4 weeks there. Yep. The club were fantastic. They'd sort of said, you take as much time as you need, and I was really grateful for that. But when something like that happens, I would have been 19 or 20 at the time.
Yep.
So pretty young, and I just young men are not always great at dealing with their emotions, and I had my older brother, had some mates that I was really close with up in York, and to be honest, we just sort of drank the whole time. That was the only way I knew how to deal with it, turn to the bottle. And it wasn't until I'd spent sort of all day and a night down at the local pub there that my sister had come looking for me, and she told me to go home. Mum wanted me, and then I got home, and there was a note on the door, sort of from Mum, telling me that enough's enough, and I need to get back to Melbourne. And my sister would be really disappointed in me pissing away a career that I'd worked so hard to get. So that was a huge wake-up call, because as you can imagine, when a parent loses their child, they're going through something only a parent can sort of experience. And for Mum to sort of have that strength to pull me into line and make sure that I wasn't wasting my life, and I needed to get back into things and stop staying in that rut that I was obviously in. So I ended up going back to Melbourne, got back into training, and the footy club and the people in it, especially the playing group, were just amazing. Like when you go through something like that, the footy club really is something that can take your mind off a lot of things. And without the footy club, based off what I was doing back home, I would have been completely lost to footy, and wouldn't have been much good at anything else. I don't think so. Really grateful for the footy club for what they were able to do for me at that time. But through those conversations with Mum, and at the end of that year, I was fortunate enough to play in the Box Hill Premiership.
Yep.
We beat Werribee. We were underdogs, but got over the line, and that was another really special moment after such a sort of tragic couple of months. And then at the end of that year, I got straight back home, and I actually requested a trade back to West Coast or Freo, and it was nothing to do with the footy club. I love the players. The club had given me my opportunity to pursue a dream, which I was really grateful for. But you think back now, and it's your mindset and your way of thinking is just not how it would normally be. And I just figured that if anything else like that happened to my family, I wanted to be in the same state, or I wanted to be home. And luckily for me, I hadn't really proven anything as a player, and Freo and West Coast weren't interested. So the trade didn't happen. And once that fell through, JT had actually rolled up to York, and me and my dad and brother and a few others, we were in a hayfield in York, actually stooking hay. And I don't know whether you've ever seen those little teepees in paddocks. That's hay that's been binded up into sheaves, and then it gets put in a sort of a teepee to dry out, and then it goes through a hay cutter to create chaff. So we were walking around. I did a lot of shit jobs as a young fella, so we were walking around picking up these sheaves of hay, and it's called stooking. And anyway, Johnny Turnbull turned up in the middle of a paddock, stinking hot, dusty, and he just said, we want you to come back. I know you've requested a trade, but we want to offer you a contract to come back to Hawthorn. And having conversations with Mum and Dad, and the old man sort of said, they were the ones to give you a chance. They presented you with an opportunity, giving you a chance to chase your dream of playing AFL footy. So I reckon you should go back there and give it your best shot. And it's funny, early on in my career, I was probably getting a little carried away with all the other stuff, external stuff that comes from being an AFL footballer. You go out to a nightclub, you get drink cards, you get free entry, people notice you, all of those things socially that a young guy can fall into the trap of getting caught up in. I was probably at that stage as a real young fella, and it wasn't until Candy passed away that I sort of realised that life, you can't really take it for granted. There's no guarantees. You're here one minute and you're gone the next. So from that moment on, I sort of made a decision that I was going to try and be the best player I could be, and apply myself and try and be a professional athlete.
Mate, there's a lot to that, and thank you for sharing so openly. It's on what's a very clearly heart-wrenching time, but it's amazing that your mum, you found some positives in it and focus and you've obviously the structure and whatnot of a football club probably made you build some closer relationships as well. One of the fans asked, who are your closest friends from your playing days?
Yeah, well, the bloke who sent through a message before, Ricky Ladson's definitely one of my best mates. Michael Osborne, I lived with for quite a while. We probably spent maybe 7 years together, living together.
Yeah.
Tommy Murphy, I became really close with Tom Murphy. Shaun Burgoyne is another one that's really close with. So that's probably my best mates. Robbie Campbell also spent some time living with Michael Osborne and I. So
yeah.
But I consider Sammy Mitchell someone that really helped me develop as a player. He's a strong leader around the place, and I consider him a mate as well.
Yeah, brilliant. We've got so many questions coming in. All right, Changa. Let me run a few by you. So maybe we'll just do some quick sort of Q&As.
Yep.
Good fan Aaron Bogard asked, "What do you think of Brockman, the young fella, rookie this year?"
Yeah, I've only seen bits and pieces of him, but he looks quite good. He's a pretty exciting player. I always find guys that are able to sort of have really good goal sense, and even though they might have a quiet day, that they're able to kick two or three. I think he's definitely one to look out for in the future. He comes from a really good footy club in Subi, I think it was. He got drafted from. So they've got a really good junior development program, and I think it'll be quite good for the footy club.
Yeah. We've got, who was your best Hawk and non-Hawk player that you played with and against?
I'd probably have to. I played with so many. I was blessed. I played with so many great players, but I'd probably have to say Buddy. I think he is just the most unique and talented player that I've ever seen. Cyril was able to do some things without the footy. I mean, obviously with the footy, but his pressure and his tackling and the way he was able to cause panic for opposition players is pretty unique as well. And I always said that Sammy Mitchell's probably one of the hardest players that I've ever seen play. He doesn't get the accolades or the recognition that someone like Hodgie, who's just super courageous and tough because of the role he played and the way he always put himself in harm's stage, in danger's way. So Hodgie was another one who's absolute superstar. But Mitch probably put his head over the footy and spent time over the footy, knowing that there was pressure and real heat coming more than anyone that I'd ever seen.
And your hardest opponent?
Probably either Gary Ablett, Jr. So played on him a couple of times, and the toughest thing about playing with him is that we played a lot of footy against Geelong, where they were just a high disposal team and just wanted to give each other the footy and share the footy. So you come in at quarter time, think you've done an all right job, and he's had 9 or 10 handballs. It's just like, geez, I thought I was going okay, but he could just find the footy better than anyone. So hard to tackle. He's probably the toughest opponent I've seen. But towards the end of 08 and in 09, 10, I did a few run with roles, and one of the hardest runners I played on was Brent Stanton from Essendon. He was a super hard runner. So it was always a tough game playing against him as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Who, since we're on it, who was the best Indigenous player that you played with?
It was probably Bud or Cyril. Yeah, but I think Shaun Burgoyne's someone who's just he's a really unique player as well. Just his ability to stay composed in traffic, always makes the right decision with the footy, and his ability to just stand up in big moments in really big games is something I've always admired as well. He's definitely one of my favourites as well.
You got a big
hard to pick.
What's that?
Hard to pick?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's hard to pick.
You got some nice plaudits from Clarko and Burgoyne. The club showed them walking around the ground, and they were reminiscing. They talked about your influence at the footy club. Shaun brought up first of all that you still give him crap about that he couldn't have finished Kokoda. What's the story?
Yeah, I just think that always
special treatment. You reckon?
Yeah, I used to say to him, I said, I don't know what you've got on Andrew Russell, mate, that he's scared that you're going to leak out some skeletons or secrets on him, but he just he had Jack wrapped around his finger. But no, to be honest, though, I mean, I'm convinced that Port Adelaide thought that Shaun maybe had 1 or 2 good years left in him. So the club, just managed him absolutely beautifully to get him to 400 games when he came over with a degenerative knee issue. Was just amazing. But Shaun would never run a 2K time trial. He'd always be given a bit of a pass to jump on a bike or jump in the pool when there were some heavy running sessions going around. But it was obvious that he needed that with his knee. But it was good ammo for us. We could put shit on him and have a bit of banter, tell him that he's the love child, looked after. But yeah, he's a cracker.
Friend for him. Even the players are giving him a bit of stick at the end of his career. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So we touched on this briefly before the show. What was your bond like with Cyril? So you told us that he lived with you, but he was pretty quiet fella.
I mean, the everyone's sort of perception of him is that he's a really shy and reserved kid, and how he's portrayed in the media when you hear him speak. He was even worse than that when he first came down to the footy club. He stayed with us when he first got drafted. I think it was only for about 3 weeks to a month or whatever. But I say to people, we were on grunting terms. So I'd ask him a question and he sort of just grunt and nod his head, and it was like that for probably the first week and a bit until we started getting to know each other and developing a bit of trust and developing a relationship and having some deeper sort of conversations. But yeah, I've got a good relationship with Cyril. I was up in Darwin when I was a development coach and Aboriginal liaison for the Indigenous boys at West Coast a couple of years ago, and when Willie Rioli went through all of that stuff, I did a couple of welfare checks where I went up to Darwin to see Willie and make sure he was going all right. And I actually bumped into Cyril because we went and had a run with one of the local footy clubs up there, me and Jamie Bennell, who works for the AFL PA. So, I ran into Shaun there, and it was so good seeing him. I hadn't seen him for quite some time. It was really good.
Can we just go up there together with you and we can just run into Cyril?
You probably would. You probably would. He'd be one of the big celebrities around there. He'd be hard to hide.
So Mel's asked, you finished up at West Coast now, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yeah. So I was Aboriginal players liaison and development coach looking after their young forwards. And I was there in 2019, I think, when they come off their flag year. I joined the footy club and then I was set to continue on in 2020, but as we all know, COVID hit. Pretty much the whole footy department was stood down for that 2020 year.
Yeah.
While the AFL worked out what they were doing, and when it was time to bring everyone back in, they just didn't have a spot for me. And then after that, speaking to Craig Bozzo, leading into 2021, the club sort of said they didn't have anything in a full-time capacity, and being able to support a young family, that just wasn't going to work for me. So no longer work there, but it was a really good time. I played under Adam Simpson for a couple of years while I was at the Hawks.
And alongside Adrian Hickmont now. Who's just moved across as an assistant with
Yeah,
Sammy.
that's right.
You're in there with him. Tell the fans a little bit about Hickmont.
He's a bit of a different character. His way of sort of thinking and seeing the game. His way of doing things would be considered a little alternative, but he had a really he had a huge role to play again with developing some players like Liam Ryan, Elliot Yeo. So he had a lot to do with the development of guys like that, which their makeup and their personalities are a little bit different as well. Not sort of what you would typically see in an AFL player. So he was able to build really strong relationships with the handful of guys that he was given to take care of and develop. And he did a fantastic job with those guys. Liam Ryan and Elliot Yeo are two in particular that credit the success they've had in recent years to the work that Hick's been able to do with them. So he'll definitely be a great acquisition for the footy club.
That's brilliant. I want to touch on a couple of things, Chris. I want to touch on Changa's, I guess, and Silk's ambassadorial role. I want to talk about people asking about the line in the sand. So quickly, one word, Changa. How many hits did you get in was one question. How many punches?
Probably just one good jumper punch on Welsh. Can't remember his name.
Do you dislike Essendon as much as most Hawks fans?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're probably the most hated team for me. Yeah.
There you go. So you didn't mind seeing the 6,200 and something days come up recently. That's good.
Yeah.
So, and you were given some roles from Clarko. Briefly, obviously sad with Clarko departing, a new era, but he gave you a few roles. Did you have a role? Because we've got to talk about 08, the granny. Did you have a role in that grand final game? And just real quick, what was that memories of that game for you? The main memories.
Yeah. So my role was to take care of Gary Ablett leading into the game to try and curb his influence. I joke about it now. I tell people I kept him to 35 and 2 goals, which is a pretty good effort. But in all honesty, towards the back end of 2008, I started sort of running with guys. It was Del Santo in the prelim final. Even the Carlton game in the last round, I was running with Stevens from Carlton. And it was more a job of, while they're there, while the ball's in dispute, you just make sure they don't get it. And then when we've got it, try and work off them and be offensive and create with ball in hand. So, that sort of evolved in the 2008 season. I had the role in 08 in the granny. That was just an amazing day. A lot of the guys that you've had on that played in 08, they probably all say the same thing, that a lot of us guys that played in that game were there when Clarko arrived in '05. So they were there at the very start of the journey. A lot of us had played in the Box Hill, or a handful of us had played in the Box Hill grading in 2001 as well. So it was great to share that really special day with so many guys that had been along the journey from the very start. Just a special day. Yeah, massive underdogs. I remember speaking to you before about having Shane Crawford there, who's a legend of the footy club, 300 games. To see him finally get the premiership that he'd been longing for his whole career was just so special for all of us. And he's one that instilled a lot of belief in me personally throughout that week. We were all really young, naive, didn't know what to expect. And a lot of the commentary around the place was that we were there just making up the numbers, and Geelong were going back to back. And Crawford and I share a locker. He's 9 on 10. And someone might have mentioned that or read it in a paper. And he sort of turned to me and he was like, that's effing bullshit. We're not making up numbers. We're going to win it. And, it wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't tongue-in-cheek. He had a real belief that we'd been the best team performing in the finals, which I think we can safely say we were. Yeah. And he thought we were as good a chance as any leading into that game. And that belief, I think, spread throughout the playing group. And we went into that game thinking that if we were at our best, then we could definitely roll them.
Yeah. Your goal's been commented on a few times in that game. You kicked 1 goal, 1, and if your role was to hurt him, you've had 4 inside 50s that day as well. So keeping Gary a bit honest, which is nice, mate. Here we go. How many times have you watched that grand final since? Is the question.
It probably hasn't been heaps. Since I finished, but definitely the week after that, it was just everywhere. Like we'd have a get together or a function, and it'd always be on the background in the TV, so you'd be catching glimpses of it all the time between the celebrations and whatnot. And I've seen it a couple of times when it's come on the TV, those retro games that they sometimes play. But I'm just waiting until my boys are old enough to sit down and watch a game of footy. I can tell them how good I was.
You've got to do that. Sure. So these days, mate, you are 2 boys, married. You're coaching again.
Yeah. So married. Yeah, married. It'd be coming up close to what is it? 6 years, 5 or 6 years. So we've got two young boys. One's 4, that's Charlie, and one's 2, and that's Max. So Charlie and Max, they're a real handful. Charlie especially, he's crazy. But yeah, they bring so much sort of joy and happiness to my life and my wife's as well. So really lucky to have those 2. And I've stayed involved in footy. When I first moved back, I tried playing for a few years, but I wasn't really up to it. And then I decided to hang around the Perth Footy Club to do a little bit of coaching, and it was more just to sort of dip the toe in the water and see if it's something that I'd like to do. And I actually really enjoy it. The strategy side of things is probably something that doesn't overly interest me. I do take a small interest in it, but my sort of passion is trying to help players become the best players that they can possibly be with some sort of one-on-one stuff, working with your line. So I really enjoy that. And at the moment, I'm working with our defenders down at the Perth Footy Club. And I came back into that role after West Coast, after I'd finished up there, because I was doing it before I was approached by West Coast and joined them. So, still involved in footy. Love the game. I find it really hard to walk away from it completely. When COVID hit, I didn't have any footy at all, and it was really nice just going to work and then coming home and spending time with the family and the boys. But after a while, I sort of had that itch to get back involved in it.
Right. Is there any WA talent over there that you think the Hawks should have a look at this year going into the draft?
I haven't kept a close enough eye on it, to be honest, mate. A lot of the Colts boys or the Colts games are on pretty early in the morning, and I sort of stay at home for as long as I can because I'm a bit time poor with working and then training 3 nights a week and then games on the weekend. So Saturday mornings I spend as much time at home as I possibly can before I have to leave.
Brilliant.
Now, Changa, just quietly, we're fans of the beard, and here's you. Mate, why'd you get rid of the beard? Love it. Again, it was just a quick decision. I'd never had a beard, and I wanted to see if I can grow one. So I grew it out for a few years, but then my mother-in-law was actually diagnosed with breast cancer a few years ago, and when I decided that I was going to actually cut it off, I started a fundraising campaign for Breast Cancer Care WA, and they provide funds and care for ladies that are going through breast cancer and their families. And I was really fortunate that I went to a Hawthorn Port Adelaide Indigenous round down in Tassie, and I was at the president's lunch down there, and I mentioned it in the president's lunch that someone mentioned my beard, and I actually said, I'm going to shave it off soon, and this is why. And we're able to raise 15 grand, which was just huge.
Wow.
Yeah. So and I ended up. What was that?
There's a theme here. You also chopped off the locks and gave it to Cyril's foundation, I think.
Yeah, the Rioli Fund. Yeah.
You better start growing something again.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, the beard, I said I would actually shave off the beard and my hair completely to skin. And Charlie was quite young then, and I've got some funny photos I might share with you later where on my Instagram page where I've taken him down. I've got a shot holding him beforehand, and then we're down at the barber shop, completely shaved beard, head's completely shaved, and he's looking at me like he doesn't know who I am. And he got quite upset, which was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I've done that with the kids.
It's been great. I know you're very generous with your time, and we've got lots of fan questions we couldn't quite get to, but mate, I know our good friends at Base Compression are sending you up some gear that was meant to help you with your fundraising run for Fred Hollows. So mate, chuck something on in, so let us know how good it is when you're running again.
I will do.
Fans, if you like the content that we put out through Talking Hawks, then please subscribe. Leave your questions for Changa or your favourite moments. And Chance, if you'd be kind enough, and there's a few questions, we'd love to have you on again. Maybe on a bit of 08, a bit more.
We only just scratched the surface.
We did. We got a bit carried away.
But no, happy to. I'll wait for you to get a few more guys on, and then after a little bit of time's passed, if you want to get me back on, and the fans want to have another chat, I'll be happy to come back on.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
Brilliant. There was one question I just have to ask though: was it better kicking to a leading buddy or roughie?
To be honest, a lot of the time, Buddy's the only person I've seen. Like he's what is he? He's 6'8" or whatever he is. He puts his arms out stretched. Big Aboriginal fella, and he's like, you look up, it's the only thing you can see. So Ruffy's probably missed out on a few passes inside 50 just because I didn't see him. I could only see Bud.
Yeah.
Planko actually had a word to me early on telling me, mate, you got to start looking for other options. Everyone knows we're going to Buddy. Everyone knows you're kicking it to Buddy. So you've got to start looking for some of the other forwards.
Brilliant, mate. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. It's been lovely to chat, and I'd love to pick up that conversation around just your role with the Indigenous, and it's you've been held in very, very high regard at the club, and the fans love you. There's a lot of love. So, mate, it'd be great to catch up again.
No worries at all. Yeah, I'd be happy to, guys. Thanks very much for your time.
Cool.
No worries at all.
Pleasure.
Take
Thanks
it
for
easy.
having us. Cool, fans. We'll catch you soon. We've got some good draft content coming out, so keep an eye, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.